Ready? Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Aida Rodriguez, and welcome to Truth Serum, the weekly wrap-up. And I'm very excited to be here. This is our first show. This is a demo, so those of you who are here are just experiencing the beginning as we work it all out. But we're having a real conversation, and these clips are actually going to live. So we were not going to let this important conversation be in vain. I want to introduce my friends who came here today. I wanted to make sure that when we talk about things from a progressive perspective, that we don't ignore the perspective of the people that the progressive movement, the backs of the people that, you know what I mean, was built on. I'm really excited about it. I'm emotional today. I've been reading a lot about Ahmaud Arbery, and the more I read, the more I get angry. So I just want to make sure that I stay calm so that we can have a good show. Anyway, this show is authentic, straight with no chaser. Everybody here is speaking their own mind. Nobody's being told that they have to adhere to anyone's political perspective or any perspective for that matter. And that is why we're doing this. So without further ado, I want to introduce my three fellow hosts, panelists, my brother and my sisters. You know him from Last Comic Standing, Amazon. You know what? Alonzo Bodden is a person who knows how to take some of the most intelligent perspectives, chew it up, swallow it for us, and then feed it to us in the way that we can understand it, because we've been dumbed down so much in this country. So Alonzo Bodden is here.
Thank you, Ida.
I'm glad you're here. The next young lady, you guys know her from TYT. She came through there like a storm, with a very young perspective on things and a very old perspective at the same time. She and I are always teaching each other stuff because we have two extreme perspectives sometimes. And I love talking to her because our exchanges are always about growth. So Brooke Thomas is here. Hi, Brooke.
Hi, I'm glad to be here.
And last but certainly not least is also one of my friends, and she is who I call in the morning when I want to have an intelligent conversation and I feel judged for it. She's a very funny woman, one of the funniest comedic minds out there that you need to know. And she wrote a book that is near and dear to my heart because as a recovering anorexic, I could relate so much to the journey. Fuck your diet. So make sure that you get her book now. Chloe Hilliard is here.
Hey, what's up? Hi, everybody. How you feeling?
So we're gonna kick it off. We're just gonna chop it up, guys. We're gonna have this conversation. I know I'm not supposed to be saying guys for the woke world because guys doesn't include everybody else, but just remember I'm only human and I make mistakes just like you. So we're gonna start with the Ahmaud Arbery story. There are so many things that I want to talk about with regards to the story. Chloe, you sent me an article yesterday, which I definitely wanted to, bring along for the journey, because Ahmaud Arbery was jogging in Georgia, and three armed white supremacists killed him. They thought that he had been a suspect in a robbery in their neighborhood. So today is his birthday, and the reason I sound so choppy about this is because I have a 28-year-old son. And every time he leaves the house, I panic. So today, supporters are gathering throughout the country to celebrate Ahmaud's birthday by running, taking a 23. I think the date of his death, 2/23. 223 miles on his birthday today. And I'm going to open it up to you guys because every single time I start talking about this, I get very upset. But Ahmaud was jogging. Three white men decided that today was their day. They were going to take justice into their hands. So vigilantism. One of them recorded the lynching, and now they've been arrested. Was it today or yesterday?
I believe it was yesterday.
Yesterday. So it took outrage. It took Sean King. It took you. It took me. It took Chloe. It took Brooke. It took Alonzo. And the reason that they got arrested is because we saw that video, because it was not enough that he had been murdered, but we saw the video. So one of the things that I think is very interesting is that the DA, who did not want to prosecute him, prosecuted a Black woman for fraudulent voting. So what I want to talk about is the systemic ills that we're dealing with here, because we can talk about marching, we can talk about lynchings all day long, but until we address the real illness, we're never going to start dealing with this. So I just want to open it up to you guys because, like I said, I feel like Rain Man right now. I can't even talk.
Yeah. I mean, I like that you said, pointed out that these arrests only were made because we saw the video, and that's the truth. And it's not that the video just popped up. The prosecutors involved in this have had this video, have seen this video. It wasn't enough, not only that this man was obviously murdered in the middle of the street, or it also wasn't enough that there was clear video of it. The outrage, the national outrage is what pushed this. And, it's always so frustrating that there's so much confusion when a Black person is killed for absolutely no reason. That's when it has to be like, oh, well, there must be some reason behind it. They must have been scared. And it's just frustrating of all the times when there's not video, because this happened back in February. We're in May. And you think about, what maybe possibly would have been different in Florida when it comes to Trayvon Martin had there been video, and how often things like this just slide because there's no proof.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing about everything that's transpired is that for centuries, the African-American community here has said that they are conspiring against us. Mm-hmm. And whenever we speak about the injustices, whenever a family member disappeared, before modern times, but a family member would just go for a walk and disappear and you would never see them again. And when you talk about a young kid being intimidated by police for having a candy bar, like all these things that we say that are true to our experience here, people don't want to admit that it's real, because if you admit that it's real, then you as a US citizen have to acknowledge how corrupt and racist our judicial system is. And so now that we have video evidence, that you can still see people still trying to make these like mental contortions, like, well, did he say anything? What did he do? Was he breathing too hard? Did he run up on him? It's like, this is all of the things that we say. To be a brown and Black person in this country is to constantly have to defend your right to walk, breathe, eat, sleep, drive.
Well, speaking as a Black male, I want to tell you, first of all, we have superhuman strength. I don't know if you've heard that, but we all do, right? I mean, I joke about it, but honestly, this is what I think whenever these cases, and I get your anger, Ida, I'm actually tired of it because it's the same thing. And whenever there's a case like this, I always think the period between the action and the arrest is when they're thinking, okay, how do we spin this one? Mm-hmm. How do we get them out of it? Like they literally, like you said, Brooke, they knew in February that this guy was chased down on the street and shot down, right? But now now we got 3 months. Let's figure out how we're going to spin this so we can get a not guilty verdict. Because it's like, we'll have to arrest him, but we can still find some way to make him not guilty. Maybe the fact that he was fighting the guy with the shotgun, like after they, because the truck blocked the street. So he ran around the truck on the other side. And then for some reason, the driver's there waiting for him with the shotgun. And obviously, if somebody points a shotgun at you, you're going to defend yourself, right? And then they shoot him. So they're thinking, how do we spin this? That he attacked a truck with two guys with guns or something. It's ridiculous as it sounds. These are the stories that come out. So the protest and the run in support, I get it. And people want to do something, but it doesn't make a difference. These things happen over and over. And it's to this point, they don't even try hard to cover it up anymore. They're like, nah, we'll do it, and also another thing, sorry, I talk too much. This is an example of the two worlds we live in, right? Everybody knows there's two Georgias. There's Atlanta and there's Georgia, right? Just like in the country, there's two standards. You look at this and look at the same time in Michigan at that white guy yelling in a cop's face. And every person of color saw that and was like, wow, can you imagine if that was a Black person or a Muslim person or a Latinx person yelling in a cop's face with a gun. Like, we can't even imagine what would happen if you did that, right? It's not even in our reality. Yet these are the two countries we live in. So we're out protesting another Black man shot down in the street, and they're protesting that the beach isn't open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'll say really quickly, the one good thing about us literally sitting in the house is that people don't have other things to occupy their time. And so the reason why I feel like a lot of white people have kind of rallied behind this whole movement for justice for Ahmaud is because they have no other distractions. And so easily you can say, well, I didn't see that news story. It wasn't on my feed. I'm not on Black Twitter. I'm looking at other things. And so now it's everywhere. And I feel like it's the same thing with the civil rights movement. It's like when white people started seeing Black people being hosed down on the news, they had to say, okay, we can't just say they're all guilty.
Right. Well, I sit down and I think about this because you and I talk about this, Chloe. What are the solutions, right? How do we actually start to make a difference and make some changes? Because it feels like I always talk about how this feels. Being a person of color feels like being in an episode of Scooby-Doo. When we talk about racism for so many years, people don't believe us. They think that come on, get over it. Slavery ended so long ago. Why are you guys still talking about this? No, if they pulled you over for a reason, and they don't realize that our skin color is the reason. Like, that is all. It in the minds of racist people, all it takes is for us to be people of color, nothing else. And it's so hard for some people to process that. And when I think about this, because it's so deep and it goes so far up the chain. When we talk about government, we scapegoat the cops sometimes, but these things they're so embedded in our judicial system with regards when we go into the DAs and the prosecutors and even the defense attorneys. Like, it is so dirty all the way in the system that we start thinking that the cops, the blue collar workers that, are on the ground are really the cause of this. And we do not value local voting and local elections. And that is exactly how the people who made way for George Zimmerman to be free got voted out, because the people who in that county said, we're getting rid of this person, and they got rid of them. And it is so important for us to understand the people that are in office in our communities that we don't bother to become informed about, because those are the people who directly affect our day to day. So when we talk about this, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you touched on so many things. For one thing, what you're saying about the rules, there's two sets of rules, right? I mean, it's shown that we've all seen these memes that they're showing about, like, the Colin Kaepernick protests, and it's like, well, if he would only follow the rules, and the Latinos locked in cages, well, if they would only follow the rules. And then they show all the white people protesting, like, how dare they make rules, the minute the rules apply to them. And what you're talking about, the voting one is tough for me, Ida, and I'll tell you why. Because it used to be, if people would say to me, well, I'm not voting because my vote don't count, right? And I'd be like, that's ridiculous, blah, blah, blah. Now it's been proven, and again, we're looking at Georgia, right? We know what happened to Stacey Abrams. It's been proven that your vote doesn't count. It will unplug the voting machines, or we'll come up with something. So I get what you're saying, and I vote, and I agree with voting, but I can't knock people who don't vote the way I did in the past, because the system, when you talk about the system being rigged, the governor of Georgia, that election was stolen in plain sight. It was stolen in plain sight. They made it, we're going to just eliminate voters in Atlanta because we don't want this Black woman winning the state.
Chloe, do you want to respond to that?
Well, I do believe that it's not enough to just vote one time. It's more of a conversation of getting people of color into the actual political positions that will actually affect change over the long term. And so but it may be hard to convince a young Black and brown person to get into politics because they'll feel like I'm just the only one, but it's kind of like chipping away. So that's one part, is to get thoroughly involved in the political system from local all the way up to the federal level. I also believe that the only real way for us to make an immediate change is to literally burn the entire system down. And if you think about civilizations throughout history, no symbolic or catastrophic change for better has happened without the entire system being pummeled down to the ground.
I don't think that you can just give up. I get what you're saying, especially in Georgia, but even Stacey Abrams doesn't want us to stop voting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that, and as bad as we have it when it comes to voter suppression tactics, and the fact that he was like basically running the election while running in the election was terrible. We still don't have it as bad as people who had to count an impossible jar of jelly beans in order to get access to the polls, to people who were beaten and bloodied and jailed just for trying to vote legally. We still don't, I just think we always owe it to the people who we haven't even had this right 100 years yet. And so just to be saying that I give up, that's a stretch too far for me, even as bad as I acknowledge that it is.
Well, I mean, I vote for my grandmother because my grandmother came here from Puerto Rico during the civil rights movement and wasn't allowed to vote. And she was hosed and she didn't even speak English and didn't know what was happening. And she was like, yeah, yo, they were like, see, too. Like, they were like, yeah, you Black too, lady. And it was a very, like, she said it was a rude awakening for her because her whole life she had just been Puerto Rican, and then she came to America and she was Black. Mm-hmm. And even though we have our issues in Puerto Rico where she was from, she didn't have those issues, but I vote for her, and I think that I do think that, we have had a lot of, this has been going on for generations for us to understand that they're corrupt and stacked up against us. And still here we are. And so I feel like continuing to fight and being politically engaged, which you see a lot more younger people now because of social media being involved more than we were when we were younger. Political stuff was for political people and not everybody. I think it's important for us to stay involved. But I do agree with Chloe. I think that a revolution is upon us. And this is what I will say. When we think about ISIS, and the media loves to demonize ISIS, but when you break it down and you think about what ISIS is, and it is those children of the people who were murdered and abused during the Gulf Wars, who watched the American soldiers go into their country and kill their parents, and that rage just raised, ISIS. Yeah. So what do you think is going to happen? You can't just keep doing this to people of color and think that at some point we're not going to develop our own ISIS here, because that's what happens.
Well, I think the unique thing here about America is that Black people in this country have been so marginalized, and we all suffer from PTSD. And so I think what's going to help push us over the edge here in this country is that the poor white people are going to start dying from COVID, and they're going to really see how much this government doesn't care about them. And when those people start to wake up, I think we'll have more of like a groundswell of a revolution, because it's so easy to just say, oh, the Black people are angry, let's, hose them, shoot them, tear gas them, arrest them. But when the whole country is like holding their elected officials accountable, I mean, it blows my mind whenever somebody says, oh, just call your local official, and then it gets something done, because they don't want to deal with phone calls. Like, right. So we have people in office who don't want to deal with phone calls.
Sure.
Well, I mean, I get what you're saying. I still, my point wasn't to not vote, because I do vote. For sure. My point is I can't argue with someone who doesn't vote. I don't have, the old arguments don't work. And as far as generations, our parent, well, I'll speak for myself. I think I'm a little older than the people than you ladies. But anyway, my parents, it's like I'm almost happy they're not here to see everything that they did being undone. Mm-hmm. The entire civil rights movement of the 60s, which was their prime, is undone now. I mean, we have a Supreme Court that's basically going to wipe all of that out, and let's hope Ruth Bader Ginsburg stays alive, and we get a new election, whatever. But I don't see an ISIS type thing. The problem with that is, and you get these crazy white people, I got my guns in case the government comes. Let me tell you something. If you ever challenge the army, you have no idea how powerful and how good they are at what they do. All right. So as far as lifting up guns, it's almost like the better thing to do would be like the Black Panthers did in the 60s when they went to California Capitol with guns. They suddenly banned guns. They were like, oh, hell no. We can't have Black people exercising their Second Amendment rights. I don't think it's a gun thing. The organization, the political pressure, our system is so broken. It's so much about money now. Like you talk about political access, it's straight up. How much money do you give? That's how much access you get. Maybe our revolution is that economic. We do have an economic power, and what you said about poor white people, it is fascinating how the Republicans have convinced poor white people to help rich white people, and Johnson said it a long time ago. He said, if you can convince the poorest white person that he's better than the best Black person, they'll fight to give you their money. And it's worked. Poor white people don't understand. They have more in common with us than they do in common with rich white people, but we're the ones they hate.
Yeah.
And you know what? I agree with that. I believe in, Chloe and I talk about this kind of stuff in our mornings when I call her. I believe in creating initiatives that actually draw results, right? So one of the things that we're working on is financial literacy in our communities, because it is about economics. But we talked about how impacted our communities are financially, that we don't know how to boycott with our dollars. We don't know how to recycle our dollars within our communities because we don't have stores in our communities that we can support, because there are other people of other communities coming in, building the stores and ours, and the stuff is accessible to us because we cannot afford to go to Whole Foods, right? And so where do we begin with that is, and with the basics, because they don't teach economics in school. They teach economics history, right? When I sit down with my kids and I was like, this is not what economics is. What they're teaching is the history of American economics and the history of the economy of the United States, but not economics, right? They don't teach geography anymore. Like, there are so many things that they're not teaching our children that my son, who went to private school, had access to all of this stuff because he was in a privileged environment, but it begins with education. And when it comes to money, we have to learn financial literacy and what that means in our communities. You were going to say something, Chloe.
No, I agree 100%. It's like, even now that people are getting these stimulus checks, it's like, I already see that people are having conversations about how that money's already spent. And it's like, if it's money, of course, I mean, notwithstanding with utilities and rent, but it's just like, oh, I can get that other thing that I wanted to get. And it's like, this is not, I tell people, like, why are you shopping online right now? Like, you don't need these clothes. Why are you buying shoes? You're in the living room. Like, it's just the simple thing of being like, we don't always have to get everything new, but, because of just the way we've been treated, it's like we have to look a certain way in order to feel like we'll get respect from people. So that's where a lot of, African-American materialism comes from. It's like, if I look the part, they'll treat me better. And we know that that's not the case, but we still try anyway.
Anybody else? Anything else to say on this? Because my stomach starts to hurt.
No, the thing about the money, it makes sense. And yeah, we don't learn it. But we don't have, whoops, I just disappeared. I don't know what I did.
We can hear you.
I disappeared from me. Anyway, we don't have the generational education and wealth and stuff. We're just starting to get that, right? Like, the main source of money, whatever, in the United States is a family home, right? Because the parents had a house, and then they could get a loan and help the kids buy a house, and you build and stuff like that. Generationally, we're just getting to do that. I mean, my family had a house, but a lot didn't. And we have to teach like you said, Ida, we have to teach the kids how to do that. But the other thing, and this is just my opinion, we have to be realistic. Yeah, a kid is going to want a pair of Jordans. Like maybe he shouldn't buy a pair of Jordans, but he wants them. And there has to be a balance. You got to allow for some of that, because otherwise, why are you doing it? You know what I mean? If you're driven enough to build that wealth and make the right decisions, but that's unrealistic for the average person. And I'm not saying spend the whole $1,200 and buy 5 pair of Jordans, but I get it if you want to buy 1 pair or shoes or sweater, or, you know, whatever. I think there has to be some balance. You have to account for human nature of I want something nice.
No. I agree with that. I do think that you should treat yourself to something nice, but I also think that we allow I don't want to generalize, but I feel like the sentiment is it's okay to live in a shitty environment and have nice shoes versus saving money up to leave the shitty environment and then get the nice shoes. It's just like cart before the horse.
Also, Chloe, the NBA is not playing right now, and LeBron needs money. LeBron's got a family, all right? Russell Westbrook's got kids somewhere that he's denying that he has to pay for. So we got to do our part.
But you know what? People have different priorities, and there's also like a level of like shaming when it comes to like what somebody else is paying for. We love to shame people buying shoes in the mall, buying Jordans, and I don't mind that. I would, in like just society as a whole likes to shame people on food stamps buying sugary sodas and chips, and it's like, dang, like their poor kids can't have fun stuff in their
but
I think that's what you're doing. But I think people have different priorities. If you want to live in the Jacks and have nice shoes because you don't want to move out of your hood, I don't have a problem with that. Not everybody wants to live where I want to live. Not everybody, I don't know. I don't have a problem with that. I get what you're saying though, but I also think it's so hard to judge somebody else like having a raggedy car and really nice purses, and like the rappers think they have it all like laid out what things should be and what your priorities should be. But I think everybody's is different. If you're bummed about your environment, then yes, you need to prioritize that. But if you're not, I'll let you cook.
Well, I think the thing is like I feel like Black people in this country are generations behind when it comes to white people doing the hard, dirty part of establishing their net worth and their wealth. And so sometimes you just have to make a sacrifice. So like we always hear about like, oh, you know, my mom was a single mother and she ate beans so that we could eat. It's like, all right, but sometimes you too have to sacrifice as an adult if you want to transition to the next level. So I'm not saying don't buy Jordans, but I say if we're going to have a conversation about financial literacy, you need to, if you're going to put somebody on a budget to understand what financial literacy is, then they need to adhere to a budget. You can't say, here's your budget, but then still get the sneakers when you could have had that $250 to get you to the $1,000 mark so you can invest it in the stock market. It's like sometimes you just have to have the real conversation about like everything doesn't need to happen at this moment.
And listen, I find myself somewhere in the mean middle between those two things, because I do think some people need to be shamed for some of the stuff that they do. And I think that this generation of people who have now weaponized the word shaming for, like we talk about this. There isn't, if you are buying Jordans because you think that people are going to respect you more and going to see you as valuable, that's different than you buying Jordans because you really like Jordans and you want some Jordans. Mm-hmm. And so I think that going within and really, there's a lot of stuff that goes into the stuff that needs to be done. Besides economics, there has to be a psychological component, because people of color do have PTSD. And a lot of the things that we're doing is because we have worthiness issues and we want to be seen as equal. We want to be respected. And the way we perceive to be respected is by the way we look. While Bill Gates got on some dirty sneakers and a t-shirt, and we think that because we got on a watch that costs $2 million that people are going to see us and respect us. So there is something to that. And when I say shaming, I don't mean shaming. I mean, there needs to be an education about this kind of stuff, because the reality of it is that we have so much power within our dollars, and we don't invest that power into the right things, and it affects our communities.
Yeah.
The reason we don't want to leave the projects and have nice shoes is because we don't think we're worthy of living in a nice house, not because it's a personal choice. It's because we don't think we belong in a better community, because we've been indoctrinated into believing to hate ourselves and that we're not worthy. So I think that there needs to be an education and there needs to be balance. And I do think that I have Jordans. Like, I love Jordans. I wear my Jordans because I'm a tomboy. But I'm not going to buy Jordans in light of paying, what I was going to tell you is I was a homeless single mom and I was broke. I started working at Edward Jones. And because of the education that I got at Edward Jones, that wasn't for me because I was just like an administrative worker there. But I took it upon myself to learn. I was able to take that investment information and get myself out of the situation that I was in. Because if you would have taken money for some Jordans and bought Amazon a couple of weeks ago, you could have made some serious money. But we don't teach our kids that, right? We don't teach our kids chess. We teach them checkers. And so I think that what I'm talking about is being able to go into our communities and arm our people with information that can change their lives. Because I think that we've gotten so far, we've gotten so deep into the materialism, the capitalism of this country is so toxic and has become so detrimental, specifically to people of color, right? Look at Jeff Bezos making $10,000 every 10 seconds. Like, that's disgusting. And so how many of those dollars are ours?
Yeah. And I think the thing about being in the situation right now is, like, I go grocery shopping and I'll see two lines. You'll see the line with, everybody who's shopping for themselves. And then you see like the Instacart line, and it's all Black and brown people who are sacrificing their health so that they can make money during their pandemic. And so when you talk about like being able to be in a position to have financial security, you won't have to risk your life to food shop for someone else who has money in the bank so that they don't have to shop for themselves. So it affects our livelihood when we don't have the financial stability in our own community.
Go ahead, Brooke.
Well, and it sucks because like I don't want to push back against that because I agree with that. It's just it's not all us because there's the systemic racism, we can't control that. Like, you know what I mean? Like you can never buy a pair of Jordans ever and never, like save up all of your money and do this and still end up at Instacart because your name is Lakeisha and nobody will go past looking at your resume. Like, you know what I mean? Like there's still so many other reasons. Like, and so I do stand in the middle of like, I never want to say like, don't try to do more and to learn more and to do better, but also recognize that we are doing the best work we can, because the reason that the people who don't look like us have an upper hand in this country since the beginning of this country is because of our forced labor. It's not because they made sacrifices. It's because they sacrificed Black people. So, and that's what this country is built upon. And that's why those people have a leg up. And so I totally understand what you're saying. I get what both of you are saying. And I agree with that. I just know that also I always want to just keep in mind that we're doing the best we can.
Oh, no, I agree. And I think whenever I have these conversations, I always have to preface it by saying I have my set of answers for how we can navigate the system that we're dealing with,
right?
Which is I feel is like, solely divest your money from the economic capitalistic racist society and start investing in, your own communities, as far as like even electing elected officials locally. Like there's how to play the game that we're set before us. And the other game is to burn this motherfucker down.
we all, and listen,
I respect it.
Buying Jordans is a very interesting case because technically we are supporting a Black business when we buy Jordans. Because
kind of.
But I do, and with respect to that, I'm going to move on to the next story. People of color are doing the best that they can, given the tools that they have in a race that they have where someone else had a head start. And we have had to catch up with a hand and a foot tied behind our back. So nobody here is going to deny that. We just want progress for the people. I love you, Brooke. I think you, that fire that you bring.
Hey, Brooke, I just real quick want to say, I get it. And I agree with you because a lot of times you're shut out of the game.
Right.
You're like when you talk about investing in the stock market and this and that, right? You don't have a friend that you're playing golf with who can get you in. We don't have that, so you do the best you can. Even when you talk about buying a house, they've shown the systematic mortgage discrimination to make it harder for you. Even when you have the job, you have the money and you show up, they make it harder for you to get the loan, or you get the more expensive loan, so you can't get the house that you deserve. And like you said, Brooke, when you're born on second base, you know, you didn't hit a double. You think you did. You were born on second base. We're starting from home plate and having to make it all the way around uphill. So yeah, I get it. I definitely support you on that. Sorry, I know we want to move to the next topic.
I know. I like that. So the next story is about a severe injustice. Dallas salon owner Shelly Luther was sent to jail for keeping her salon open during the pandemic, the shutdown, the quarantine in Dallas. And according to the Dallas Sheriff's Office, she's been in jail since Tuesday after being sentenced to 7 days. But on Thursday morning, the Texas Supreme Court granted a motion to release her. The order came soon after Governor Greg Abbott announced he was modifying his recent executive orders related to the coronavirus pandemic to eliminate jail time for Texans who violate the restrictions. So a small crowd with balloons and posters started cheering Shelly's free upon her release. Video from KTV TV shows. She said, "I'm a little overwhelmed. I just want to thank all of you who I just barely met. And now you're all my friends. You mean so much to me. This would have been nothing without you." So I was going to call Shelly Karen, but I realized that her name was not Karen. Her name was Shelly. Luther, whom State District Judge Eric Moy found in contempt of court earlier this week, kept her salon a la mode, running while violating stay-at-home orders, and despite receiving a cease and desist letter from Dallas County Judge Clay Jenkins, as well as temporary restraining order signed by Mo, a Democrat, that told Luther her business must remain closed. Now, one of the biggest problems that I have with this article is that they had to state what the political party of the judge was, which I thought was unnecessary, but of course necessary to politicize the story. But the reality of it is that if we're going to uphold the law, does it matter what political party you belong to? So I want to open it up to you guys, to you people, and so we can talk about the injustice and the hardship that Shelly experienced in them 4 days she was in jail.
Listen, I struggle with this because I am horrified and angered that people don't want to prevent other people from dying. It is, and I keep comparing it to like arguing against the government mandating drunk driving be illegal. Like, it's my right to drink and drink. No, it's not. It's not. It is not. And so I am so frustrated with this because people are dying from this. And even if you're not dying, nobody wants to be lying in the bed, not being able to breathe for an entire month because you had to go to the grocery store and so doesn't want to wear a mask or doesn't want to stop cutting strangers' hair. It's unfair and it's awful. I also, our criminal justice system is so fraudulent and is just so raggedy and it is just so insane. I also don't think people should be going to jail. Like, going to jail for 7 days is a way bigger deal than we like to realize because we're so used to people getting sentences of like 198 years, 347 years, stuff that is just absolutely absurd that we look at that as a big deal. But 10 days, 7 days in jail is a big deal. I don't think anybody should be sentenced to jail for breaking these ordinances, even though I also equally hate the people who are violating this because it's putting other people in and I'm struggling with it. But I don't think she should have been put in jail to begin with. I'm also grossed out that the governor is like, I'll pay her bail because when they're like, what? Personal? There's so many. Do you know how many people could benefit from your $7,000 you're willing to take out of your pocket and pay for it? Just because you want to take a political, it's just all so gross. I don't think anybody should go to jail for violating these ordinances. I also wish people would stop violating them. Mm-hmm. I saw Ted Cruz in her chair earlier today, like proudly with the mask on, getting his hair cut. This is like, you're all gross people. It's gross. Like, yeah. People are dying from this. To get your hair cut, do you know how bad I want my hair cut, my hair done? Do you know how bad I want to go to the beauty supply store? Not bad enough to die. Like, this is stupid. You're arguing about death. This is what? I don't know. Like, look at me and look at Ted Cruz. Who do you think values a good hairdo more? It's not him. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to die for it. This is just stupid. It's all, I just have so many, I hope I'm making sense because there's so much different confusion. I have so many different things involving this. But
no, I believe that she should be under the jail. Because she refused several citations to remain closed. She did it defiantly, and it's the same thing as a chef poisoning their people. Like I'm exaggerating the scenario, but if you are the owner of a business and you're willingly putting people at risk, you should be arrested and put in prison. I don't know for how long, but you should definitely be arrested, booked, and have to go before a judge because you're willing. It's like someone who knows that they was exposed to something, continuing to expose people to it. So she should definitely be reprimanded for that. And here I'm in New York City, and there have been, I believe, 30 arrests for people for social distancing, and the majority of the people were African American, 1 white person, and 4 Hispanic people. So there's definitely a discrepancy when they treat people with social distancing. You have cops here in New York City giving white people masks and beating people down and slamming them and sitting on their chests if they're black or brown. So hell yeah, send her to prison ASAP.
This is a fascinating story to me because it's so two sides, right? For one thing, the idea that in Texas a white woman got arrested for this blows my mind. Like for that to happen in
Dallas, it was Dallas. You know, Dallas is kind of how it's a light version of like there's Dallas and then there's Texas. Like
I know like North Dallas is a separate city and then South Dallas is the hood. I lived in Dallas for a while, but there was also in West Texas, and this was fascinating. There was a bar that opened and they had the guys, out front with their guns, right? Because they like to walk around with their guns. And the police showed up and arrested them. They were like, no, you don't brandish with the police. Like, we ain't scared of your stupid ass with your gun. And they arrested all of them. And again, I was fascinated because you wouldn't expect that in Texas.
Yeah.
Now, as far as her going to jail and getting out of jail, this is a Republican thing. This is their freedom and liberate. And this went all the way up to Trump. And that's why the governor kissed ass and all of that. I think the solution is lock up her business. The same way if you don't pay your parking tickets, they put a boot on your car. The government should have some kind of big ass padlock and they just show up and they lock the gates. And they're like, no, you're not opening. I don't care what you think. You're not opening because you ain't cutting this lock off. And if you cut this lock off, now you go to jail. Just like with the boot. If you cut that off or do something, now you're under penalty for it. That's how you shut this stuff down. Yeah. Now, as far as the beach, I don't know how to shut down the beach. Open fire. Just you only have to shoot
with a rubber
like
bullet.
10 or 12 of them. If you shot like 12 of them, the rest of them be like, man, I ain't going to the beach. Sacrifices have to be made, is
Absolutely.
all I'm saying.
And
you can't lock a beach. Just leave the bodies out there. Not long, Brooke. Just long enough. Okay? Just long enough.
You do this thing where, like, you slide into comedy, but with the same tone, same look on your face. And it takes me a second.
Ida, real quickly, they have to tell you the political affiliations of the people so you know who has common sense and who doesn't.
Yeah, it really is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It is. But that common sense, they've hijacked words like freedom and liberty and American. These are all code words now. These are their code words. So the Democrat who wants to shut you down for, like you said, Chloe, a major health risk because the person at your salon who gets sick goes home, then people get sick, then they go to the grocery store and blah, blah, blah. If you're a Democrat doing it, now you're limiting their liberty or taking their freedom or some bullshit like that. But they've hijacked these words and that's their brilliance because it becomes a no-win situation for intelligence and common sense.
Yeah, they have. They said this is the new Jim Crow. They said that they are the Rosa Parks of today. The woman who got arrested at the park with her children. So I read this article this morning. I tweeted it. A woman's son would not follow the social distancing rules, left the house, brought back coronavirus. As a result of that, 9 family members have gotten coronavirus. And one of the members is older and sick. So what I say to you is, what do you do with someone who's reckless like that? That's reckless endangerment, right, of the public. Even though people volunteer to go there, or they, what happens when someone dies from acquiring coronavirus when they came to your salon, when you opened it, when it was against the law for you to open it? Because Juwan Howard got sued, and a bunch of other athletes have had legal action taken against them for giving people herpes, right? Because they had herpes and they gave people herpes. So what I'm saying is, what are the consequences if someone loses their life as a result of your negligence because you decided to open your business when they said that it was against the law for you to open it? There have to be consequences for people breaking the law, because the reason why I'm so adamant about that is because for us, the law is enforced to the letter. It is enforced, right? So why is it that is extreme for a white woman to go to jail for 7 days because she broke the law and endangered the lives of people in her community? Because at the end of the day, that's what she was doing.
I get what you're saying, and I totally get like the racial disparities, but I can't look at like our criminal justice system and what needs to be reformed like that. Like, I want to fight for it to be better for us, not worse for white people. Like, and I just, because it will always be worse for us.
But I'm not arguing that it needs to be worse for white people. I'm arguing that white people need to be held to the same standard.
Yeah. It needs to be equal. If a black man has to get his chest kicked in because he's not social distancing, then Edward Scissorhands over here need to get something happening to her too.
But I want nobody to get their chest kicked in, and nobody.
Some people need some people need their chest kicked in.
Chloe,
yes,
we have superhuman strength. So you must kick our chest in, because we will just use our superhuman strength. Otherwise, we keep that. Brooke, what you said about drunk driving should be the exact standard. If you own a bar and you serve someone who is already intoxicated and they have a drunk driving accident, you, the bartender, and a bar owner are liable. You can be held liable, and they go after you in civil court, right? Getting back to what you said, Ida, in civil court, they go after you because it's the deep pockets thing, right? The lawyer is going to find who has money. So if the drunk driver doesn't have insurance, but the bar is insured for $1 million, they're going to try to sue the bar. Either the reason they went after Juwan Howard is because he had NBA money. You know what I mean? Like, if Joe on the corner gives you herpes, you out of luck. Joe don't have any money. Juwan Howard has NBA money. So what you said, Brooke, about making this like drunk driving and having there be a liability element, it shouldn't be done. It's ridiculous to be done. But if you are dumb enough to do it, you should be held legally liable. And the civil liability is scarier, because then they take your money, right? That's the part. Trump ain't going to help you when they come to take your money. The governor isn't going to help you when somebody says, oh, my whole family got sick because of you giving a haircut. We're suing you for $10 million. Good luck finding the governor then, So take it to civil. I think take it to civil court.
Yeah, you would wish you were in jail for 7 days once they come and take your business.
Yeah, you get those daytime lawyers chasing money, and they'll be like, "Do you have COVID-19?" I'm telling you, it sounds funny, but it'll be the same thing. Where did you get it? That's how those lawyers make money. Where did you get it? Did your husband, daughter, son, wife go to jail, to this hair salon? You may have a case. That's what it'll take.
We're going to see so much of that, especially like as people are going to be now forced to go back to work in completely non-essential businesses. I think next year we're going to see so many lawsuits from families of people who have lost their lives because of just business owners following what like the government, a protected entity, has told them is okay to do. And people also patronizing them. We are going to see so much of that, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. And that's why Fox News is lawyering up, because they realized they were telling people it wasn't real or to take these pills or whatever, and now they're like, oh, we shouldn't have been saying that because now we can be sued.
And the other thing, go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, Brooke, in reference to your point, I don't know if you saw it, but it was online. It was really funny. This person put the transcript of the call to the governor's mansion in Georgia. When they opened everything up, they called and said, okay, well, I'll be there Monday for my tour of the mansion. And they were like, no, we're closed. It's a pandemic. He said, no, but you said it's safe. And they go back and forth using the governor's arguments for opening nail salons as toward the mansion, and ultimately got hung up on. And they were like, no, we're not. You know what I mean? So it just shows
ourselves.
They know.
Yeah.
Yeah, they know. They're like, no, I'm going to be safe. But you guys go out there and test the waters for me.
The herd immunity.
Yeah.
Also, this is not going to fix the economy because not everybody is dumb.
Yeah.
I don't care what you open up. I'm not getting my hair done. I'm not going to the zoo. I'm not going to a concert. I'm not trying to. I'm not going to the beach.
But I'm
not doing things that I don't have to do. I'm not dying for this beach.
Yeah, but I think there are a lot of people. I mean, the same amount of people who don't believe that police brutality is targeting Black and brown people are the same people who believe the government that says it's okay to go out and go to the beach. It's a lot of those people in America.
They're going to get rid of us. They're going to get rid of a lot of people. But and the other thing that I will say, when we start thinking about the judicial system, like, you know, a lot of people like to say all cops aren't bad. All judges aren't bad. And I think that there's such a severe lack of balance in our government right now that judges want to be able to stand their ground in their jurisdictions. And now you have Donald Trump intervening and you have governors stepping in, and there's so much chaos. There's such a lack of balance that people want to send messages because some of those people do really believe in what the Constitution stands for and do believe in the rule of law. And the fact that this administration has gone so rogue, intervening in local cases. He's talking about Colin Kaepernick. He's involving himself in, you know, Ahmaud Arbery. He had on a tuxedo. Like it was a you know, something like, wow, guys, a Black dude with a tuxedo has to be a good guy. You know, like you have this government that has gone completely rogue. And there are some people who are actually fighting for order and justice, and they want some. And so here they're telling these white people, you can't do this stuff. They see Donald Trump with no mask on. They see Pence with no mask on. They keep sending the message that this isn't real to the people who believe that. And now you don't think you have to obey the law anymore. And everybody doesn't agree with Donald Trump. And that's what America is supposed to be. Everyone shouldn't have to agree with Donald Trump for you to follow the rules. And so that's why I think that you see people trying to set an example by saying, no, you don't open your hair salon because you're endangering everybody else. And it doesn't matter what Donald Trump says. This is what I say. And then here they go and they intervene. So where do you send the messages? How do you send the messages if not with the people?
Yeah.
She should be in jail right now. With
right now. She should be doing cornrows for free on the yard.
I got no love. So we have 7 minutes left, and I wanna bring some levity to this because I don't want everything to always be heavy and about. There are some good things happening in the world, but this is not about good things happening in the world. I think this is funny. Nearly half of men say they do most of the homeschooling, but 3% of the women agree. And so homeschooling, the new parental chore brought about by the coronavirus lockdowns, is being handled disproportionately by women. And I don't know if you saw that interview about that woman in Orange County who with the owner of a gym. She started crying and she was like, we have to take care of our own children.
Yeah.
This is not fair. It was hilarious. But because women are doing the work, according to a poll by the Morning Consult for the New York Times, fathers don't necessarily agree. Nearly half of those with children under 12 report spending more time on it than their spouse, but just 3% of women say their spouse is doing more. 80% of mothers say they spend more time on it. So I wanted to get your, I feel like I'm in New York right now because you can hear the sirens. What do you guys think?
I'm so glad that I am team plan B and pull out. There are no children over here. I don't have to help nobody with no math or no phonics. It's just me and my dog chilling, eating snacks.
Well, that's the thing. You're asking this question of people with no kids.
But we know they lying and then convincing themselves that it's not a lie. This is what is happening in these homes, okay? Men are sharpening pencils and loading up the laptop and thinking like, oh, dang, that was exhausting.
Nope.
And missing like the 8 hours of work that the wife has to do. I mean,
listen, what's so
I'm
funny is
sure.
like this is the classic example of gender roles. Like it's like you want a woman to do all of this, but you're in a house, so you don't have to do the man part. You don't have to hunt or get gas or change the oil. And you're like, oh, I'm doing my job.
Right. This is a weird thing because just what you said, Chloe, the roles have changed, right? It would be different if it was, like 1950s America where the man went out to work and the woman stayed home all day and then she takes care of the kids and blah, blah, blah. And now he's home from work and he's like, I don't know what to do. And he's teaching the kids something. But now the family, the dynamics are so different and so weird. You know what I mean? I don't know who's teaching. It might be who knows something, right? What the kids are learning today, the so-called new math and the this and that. Kids are asking questions that neither parent knows the answer. So they're like, listen, Google it, or whatever, you know what I mean? And dad's like, well, I'm paying the internet bill. I'm teaching, I don't know. It's a strange, I have friends who are in this situation. A friend of mine, she's a teacher, and she said that her kids, none of them are doing not none of them, but very few of them are doing the work because the school already said, well, we're not going to do grades this semester. We're just going to give completion because there's no way to grade with the homeschooling. A lot of parents, let me tell you something, when this thing is over, when teachers go on strike for more money, parents are going to be like, give it to them.
Whatever they ask for.
I've had these little idiots around the house. You got 20 or 30 of them. Whatever you want, we'll pay. Keep those idiots. You know what I mean? Parents are finding out It's not as easy as you thought. And that's just your kids. Forget about a room full of people's kids. So maybe, wouldn't it be great if this whole thing, no matter who's teaching at home, taught us as a society to respect education?
Yep.
Imagine what that would do if parents were like, wow, it's hard to teach, whether it be dad or mom or whoever does it. Maybe we should respect these teachers a little more.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know what I was thinking about, because I was very involved in my kids' schooling. I taught my kids how to read myself because I didn't trust the teachers. And what I was saying,
Brooke, don't you love Ida? I love Ida. I don't trust them teachers.
I don't trust them teachers. I don't trust the
my
schools.
kid how to read. I ain't having it.
I don't, because it's a mixed bag. You don't know what you're going to get. But what I was going to say is, if anything, it should shed light on our education system. Like when you start looking at what I've been talking to my friends, and they're talking about the lesson plans. Like they were like, I can't believe this is the bullshit that my kids are learning. Every week it's a new fundraiser. But this, I have a friend that was like, this bitch don't know the quadratic formula. And it was just like, people in Cuba learn this in the 3rd grade. And I was like, well, you ain't in Cuba. And you're going to have to teach her the quadratic formula, because the truth is you're going to have to arm yours with what you need to arm. Right? And so if anything, it should be, yes, the teachers, our education system, 2 different things. Our teachers work, they're underpaid, they're undervalued. Yes. And the education system is, they don't have the resources. I was at the dollar store. I saw a teacher buying all this stuff. And I was like, hey, you really like pencils? And she was like, no, I have to buy them for my class because we don't have enough money to in the budget. So I have to buy the stuff from my children. Yeah. In my classroom. And I was just like, wow, like that's where we are, guys.
Yeah, it's hard. I have some friends who are teachers, and they were telling me how out of the student body, maybe New York City schools are really big. So one of my friends, a teacher, she has 500 students that she has to deal with And out of the 500, only maybe like 280 came to school when they announced that they were closing the schools to get the Chromebooks. And the other kids are just lost. Like, she can't reach them. Some are living shelters. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have laptops. They can't get the assignments. And I think that is another thing that we need to think about. It's like, if we're going to advance with this technological age, like, students across America should have all the same resources nationwide. It should not be any gaps or holes.
Wow. So the hour went by quickly. We have 30 seconds. We're going to come back. We'll be back next week. I do want to highlight one story that we didn't get to, but you should go read it. Armed Black people escort Michigan lawmaker into state capitol building. And I think that this is such an important story for you to read, because the Second Amendment applies to us too. And what an amazing difference it will make in the world, impact everyone, if we all started exercising our Second Amendment, right, as people of color. Because then you'll see, them say, wait a minute, let's talk about these guns, right? So on Wednesday, a small group of people exercised their Second Amendment right to bear arms by walking to the state capitol building in Lansing, Michigan, toting large rifles, much like the mobs of white anti-quarantine protesters last week. And they were escorting Representative Sarah Anthony. So big shout out to all of those people who exercised their Second Amendment right, because Black Lives Matter. And I think that is a high note for someone like me to end on. Go get your gun. Alonzo, Chloe, Brooke, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks.
I appreciate you. And everyone that's here, I see you. I see the comments. I appreciate you guys showing up. We just wanted to do it for a small group of people because we got to iron out the kinks. I have to get my shit together. I can't be so emotional that I can't read a story and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the objective of this hour every Friday is to tell our stories and to give our perspective about the stories, because we are smart, we are beautiful, we are intelligent, and we have something to say. So thank you for coming and joining us on Truth Serum, where we give it to you straight with no chaser. Bye.